Hello, and welcome to the Soul Shaking Love podcast, bringing you expert teachers to help you feel that mind, body, and spirit connection, both with yourself and your true love. I'm Valerie Green from CoachValerieGreen.com, and today I'm really excited to bring you dating and relationship coach Sandy Weiner. Hi, Sandy.
Hey, Valerie. So great to be here.
Great to have you. And as I'll introduce her in a little bit, she is definitely an expert. She's interviewed me for her podcast, which she's been doing longer than I have. So she has really done her homework and knows a lot. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her after I introduce the topic, which is so important because the topic is how to stop second guessing yourself and trust your decisions in love. And let me tell you, I used to struggle with this my entire dating life. So I wish that I'd known about your work earlier, Sandy, because I mean, I'm married now, but when I was dating, I that was the biggest question I was always asking myself, how do I know if he's the right guy for me? Something in my gut just says maybe, and I don't know how to tune into it. And it took a lot of work for me to work through that. So I really look forward to picking your brain about your process, Sandy, because it really looks like you've streamlined it, and you've even recently wrote a book about it, which I'm excited to pick your brain about. So yes,
Yeah.
so I'll tell everyone a little bit more about you, and then we will just dive in. So um as I said, Sandy hosts her own podcast, which she's been doing for a long time, and she interviewed me on it a few years ago, and she's just interviewed all of the best experts. She is an internationally known TEDx speaker and the chief love officer of Last First Date, which I just love that title. um, and she's a dating coach, a women's empowerment coach, and she hosts not one but two podcasts, which I'm happy to provide the links of below this video or this episode if you're listening to the podcast. She's the author of the book Becoming a Woman of Value: How to Thrive in Life and Love, and the recently published Choice Points in Dating, Empowering Women to Make Better Decisions in Love, because she believes that it's never too late to have the life and love that you want, which is obviously my passion as well. So I'm super excited about this, and stay tuned because I know that she has an exciting free gift at the end about this new topic. So
I do.
yes. So I just love to pick your brain about, are we at choice when we're dating, or are we not at choice? Let's just start there.
I think many people believe that they're not a choice. There are people who do, but I think that there are certain things we think we're not a choice about. And that could be, well, I grew up with a screwed up family. So obviously, I'm not really at choice about the kind of partners that I'm going to end up with. Or I grew up without money. So I'm not really at choice about having a partner who has money or having money myself. There's a lot of limiting beliefs around choice.
Mm,
And I think that it's easy to believe that we're not a choice. It's easy to believe that if you're widowed, you shouldn't date for a very long time because your kids are young and you're not really a choice because you have to focus on your kids. But then 10 years later, when your kids are saying, Mom, why didn't you start dating yet? Please get out of the house and date. And now you don't know even how to start dating. So it's often the case that we don't know what our choices are. We don't know what we're at choice about, and we don't know what we can control and what we can't control, and all these things. And they're all stuff that we can learn. And that's why there are dating coaches in the world, because we help people understand what our choices are and how we can become more empowered.
exactly, exactly. And I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people um they either think that they're not at choice, or they think that they are at choice, but they have blind spots to the ways that they're not. If
Mm,
that makes sense, right? Like I think there's definitely the case of people saying what you just said, like my programming dictates my choices, or like people who have done therapy, and I think therapy is great, of course, but a lot of therapy just stops with getting insights. Oh, my mom was narcissistic, so of course I'm going to be attracted to, or my dad was, or whatever, I'm going to be attracted to partners that don't value my feelings because that's my programming.
Mhm.
And that we understand that, but we don't know how to change our programming, right? We just think that that's our fate, that we're not a choice. Or people say, I don't know why I have a type and I just keep attracting the bad boy type and I don't know what I could do to change it, right? So I think that's kind of the examples that you're saying, is that people don't think they have a choice as to who they're attracted to, and then they come to the conclusion, oh, I just can't trust my inner knowing because my inner knowing always leads me wrong, right? Is that what you notice over and over again?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what Lori Gottlieb, the therapist, says about insight. I think she says something like it's the booby prize of therapy. It's like
Mm-hmm.
we think this is the goal, is to have insight, but insight alone without action and without knowledge of how to make changes doesn't get you anywhere. And so in my book, I have exercises in almost every chapter because I believe in getting actionable about anything. And really, I just heard too many people say we don't have choices, or I don't know what my choices are. And so that's really what this book is about.
Oh, good. Yeah. So, how would you then boil it down to what can people do to learn to trust what you call their inner GPS when it comes to
Yeah.
dating, their gut
So,
feelings, their intuition?
right.
Right.
So there's a big difference between how most people view gut feelings and what true intuition is. A lot of gut feeling is fear based. It's based on past experiences. Oh my God, that guy feels really dangerous to me, but they don't know. Or they go through with like red flag glasses on. They look for what's wrong with everybody because that's going to keep them safe. And so that's a gut feeling. Like I'll look online for somebody and I don't like the way his hair is. I don't know, definitely not my type. Why? I don't know. It's a gut feeling. And so they're discounting everybody because of this gut feeling, or, and maybe somebody's getting too close and then it feels clingy. So that's a gut feeling, get away. A lot of times our gut feeling is steering us in the wrong direction. And so what true intuition is, it's connected to this inner GPS, to that
Mm.
inner compass that's based on who we are at our core. And in coaching school, when I was getting certified, one of the first exercises we did was to understand our values and who we are and how we run. I mean,
Yep.
I give an operating manual to my clients.
Yes.
So I really believe that we need to know how we operate best.
Yes.
And my operating manual is just for them. It's for them to understand themselves and then be able to communicate clearly to their partners. So some of the things that are on that operating manual are, they're based on the three ways that compatibility is based, the three keys of connection. So the first one is lifestyle, the basic core. How do we like to live? What do we eat? Are we an introvert or an extrovert? How much sleep do we need? Do we like it when it's cold in the house or hot in the house? Like, just basically, how do we function day to day? And you don't have to align on every single one of these, but if you understand yourself, you can say, hey, I'm a vegetarian and I'd like to go to a restaurant where we both can eat. Or I only like to date vegetarians or pescatarians or whatever it is. I'm an introvert and I need time alone to recharge. Being able to know that and state that, especially if you go on a vacation together, is crucial. That way you're not burnt out and
Yep.
he's not taking it personally that you're taking time away.
Yeah.
So those are the lifestyle pieces. Then there's the worldview. The worldview is the bigger picture. It's religion, it's how you see the world, politics, all the big stuff. Again, knowing, how do we believe? What do we believe? And then being able to talk about that and seeing if we align. And the worldview is one of the most important places to align, because if you're off on those, then it's going to be really hard. And the
Yes.
last piece is sex. It's the piece of connection where it's, how do we express ourselves sexually? Not just whether we like sex, but how often do we like sex? What kind of sex? We need to communicate these things. And so to really define it and really communicate it. And so that's one area of that's the inner GPS is these are the ways I function and how do you function? But we also look at values in general. You know, what are your core values? And so a lot of people say, I don't know. I certainly didn't know. If somebody had asked me back when I was studying coaching, this was 2007. I had just gotten divorced. I had no idea who I was and what I stood for because nobody had ever asked.
Yep.
And so if you think about a core value that's important to you, like you, Valerie, what's one of your values?
Well, I would say my top three core values are unconditional love, wisdom, and empowerment.
Okay, so let's take one of them,
Okay,
empowerment.
unconditional. Oh, sure. Yes,
I'm going to
empowerment
choose
is great. Yes,
empowerment.
great. Let's do it.
And tell me a bunch of words that describe what empowerment means to you.
Yeah, so it means that we have the ability to identify what it is that we want, and we can identify that we have an ultimate feeling of I'm capable of getting what I want. I have the tools, I have the knowledge, I have the resources, I have the ability, I have the strength. That I know I have this general felt sense that if I go after what I want, that it's possible. That's my belief system. And then, as I'm an NLP practitioner, I know that like I'm focusing my attention on certain things, I'm visualizing certain things that give me that feeling.
Hmm. So that's uniquely you. All of those things really describe your relationship with empowerment, whereas somebody else may say, oh, it's about feminism and women taking charge. And it could be so many different things. And so we call those value strings when we were in
Mm-hmm.
coaching school. So it's all the little strings of words that surround the values, the core values that really define who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that that's important to you, if somebody stepped on a value like that and really said, stop talking, stop feeling, stop something,
Or I
that
don't
would,
think people should be empowered. I think, we should be hierarchical and I should be telling you what to do or whatever.
yeah, they
Right?
were
Like then it
controlling.
would rub you the wrong
Right.
way. Yeah.
Right. So knowing that in your gut, in your intuition, if somebody came along and was trying to tell you what to do, you'd feel that. You'd feel that in your gut. So that is your inner GPS. It's
Mm-hmm.
saying that core value of mine. I mean, I had that happen the other day. I was talking to a guy online, and I had just come back from being out of the country for a month, and I said, if I'm feeling up to it later, do you want to talk? Because I like to talk to people before going on in text. And he said, I'd like to wait until you're fully rested. It was something like it felt really like
Like
he
I'm going
wasn't.
to decide
Yes,
when you're ready.
because I had just said if I'm up to it, and he was sort of telling me, sort of mansplaining it. And it was a small thing, but it touched on that value
Mm-hmm.
of agency and empowerment. And
Mm-hmm.
so pay attention to those things. Like, for our audience who's listening, the more you're attuned to these are my core values, these are the things that matter to me. And when they have not been honored, I have felt it in my body. That's what you trust.
Exactly. I love what you're saying, because I think that a lot of people miss red flags like that because we're not really taught that values are one of the most important keys of long-term compatibility. We're taught to just follow our attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And attraction, as you know, and I'm sure that you'll answer more on this when I ask you more, is based on our programming mostly, and whether or not we would have healthy babies. And so like our, programming compatibility and our biological compatibility, or if it's the same sex a couple, it might be genetic compatibility still. We don't know really a lot of the science behind that. But regardless, it's not shared values, and the shared values are what really determines long-term compatibility. And so nobody really taught us that. So, that's what I want to hear your answer to. Why does attraction often lead to poor choices?
Yeah, because our strong, strong attraction, based on a lot of what you just shared, is it clouds our brains. It clouds our logical brain, and really balancing head and heart is really what we're looking for, the
Mhm.
compatibility and the chemistry combination, that nice soup of chemicals that come together. But
Right.
if you're relying just on that strong, strong chemistry, it's like a 10 and 11 in chemistry, and you're just so attracted that you're putting them on a pedestal, and you're completely losing yourself in the process. You're overlooking every red flag, you're making excuses for that person, and that's where the poor choices come in. So
Mhm.
it's really important to notice if the attraction is through the roof and you are completely glossed over, or you're having sex too early where you know that you bond, and you do release chemicals. I mean, there's science that supports this, that, if you want to have sex and have casual sex, that's fine. But if you know yourself, and you're honest with yourself, then you may see that you bond really early on, and you may overlook a lot of things. I had a
Right. That
client
just
once,
right.
just tell a
Yeah.
quick story, because she was positive that she wouldn't bond. I mean, she just said, I know myself, and then she slept with the guy on the second date. She was already putting him on a pedestal, thinks, oh my God, he was so exotic and amazing. And then she cooked him like a 10-course meal, and he slept over. And the next day she's emailing me, oh my God, I didn't hear from him all day. And now she's freaking out because she has already bonded and she is anxious. And he wasn't ready for a relationship. She was. They were not on the same page, and she had already given so much of herself. So
Mhm.
this convincing I am fine when she wasn't, the more honest you can be about what bonding looks like to you, and really take care of yourself so you don't lose yourself in attraction.
Yes, yes, I completely agree. And what I hear you saying when you say balance your heart with your head, I think a lot of people, when you talk about your inner GPS, I think it's just because we're not really taught what our head really can be aware of that's most important. Because we think balancing the heart with the head means, how people say, well, he looks good on paper. But usually that's people making a list of what they want, like what kind of job they want, what kind of career, what kind of looks, what kind of status, what kind of interests. And what you're saying, this inner GPS, is based on our values, which is what gets you up in the morning. Or a question I like to ask with values, which I'm sure you have your own, are how do you want your friends and family to be toasting you on your 80th birthday for what you've accomplished to the world, etc. Like that is, if the answers to the question, what are my top values and what are my ideal life partner's top values, um, that balancing your heart with your head with those answers is what actually gives you true um, awareness of true compatibility, rather than just following either your gut feeling, which is based on your programming, or your attraction, which is not just your gut feelings, but your overall feelings, which also might be based on your programming, to balance that with your awareness of your deeper values, your deeper senses of what truly makes you compatible in a relationship. And I know that you have a proven method for creating a list of must haves and deal breakers as to, not just your values, but all the things that you should have in your head when you're balancing your feelings with your head to make sure that you're choosing the right person. So, yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your method.
Yeah, so I'm going to share that in a second, but there was a thought that I had as you were talking, which is we often date in a way that just looks at the dating process,
Mm-hmm.
not the long-term like partnership
Mm-hmm.
process. And
Right.
so dating can be really exciting and fun with one person, but there's just absolutely no future with that person, because that person makes poor decisions. That person doesn't really show up consistently. Like these are things that if you're going to live with somebody day to day, if that's your goal, then you need to look at a person beyond the date. And we're not taught beyond the
Right.
date. We're taught romance and sweep you off your feet and big gestures, but it's the small gestures that really matter on a day-to-day basis.
Right, right. They do say it's the little things. And I mean, I find that right, because when you're first dating someone, there's all the hormones that get, brought up during the honeymoon phase. And that causes us to be so much more affectionate and emotionally effusive than we would be by default to see if we would do those little things once we're already settling into that comfortable dynamic when you're exclusive with someone. So
Yeah.
I agree. It's important to see, does that person have kindness as a value? Because that's what would make the little things be sustainable. And how can you tell? Right? Like what do you
Mm-hmm.
look for in the beginning to tell if they share that as a top value of theirs?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the must-haves and the deal breakers because people usually get them wrong. Like you said a little earlier, we look at all the physical attributes. We look at what society thinks is a good quality in a partner. The CEO of the company, the guy who's confident because he's proven himself in his work. Those are not necessarily relational qualities. And so we're looking for, again, relational qualities. And the way that I like to do this, and it's based on something I learned a long time ago from my friend Bobby Palmer, is that you want to first start with what most women really are looking for in a relationship, which is safety. And so if you take the
Mhm.
word safety, I would say that's like the overarching thing. We want to feel safe physically. We want to feel safe emotionally. We want to feel safe sexually, financially. Now you take those categories and you say, who does he need to be for me to feel that way?
Mhm.
So for me to feel safe financially, he has to be financially responsible, not financially secure, because a lot of so-called security has been completely just turned over in the last few years, especially with COVID, people losing jobs. That's not something in everybody's control, but what they do with it matters.
Mhm.
How do they recover when they have a divorce and wealth is split? What do they do? Do they complain about it or do they actually do something about it? If they get into debt, are they getting out of debt? It's all those things.
Right,
Then we
exactly. It's
have,
a financial fitness, perhaps.
yes, I like that. So it's in all of those categories. How do I feel safe emotionally? He has to be somebody who can handle conflict, who doesn't shut down and shut me out and get defensive and make me wrong, but he will stay in the picture and he'll admit when he's wrong. And we can talk about hard things and we can talk about good things. And so that feels safe emotionally. To me, it would. And
Mhm.
then sexually, what do I need to feel safe sexually? Communication, STD testing, he has to be somebody who's open to being transparent about all those things sexually. So those are the ways to really start to create that must-have list that shows me that he can be the kind of person who's going to keep me safe in all those areas where I'm going to feel aligned. And then there are other personality traits that just are going to show up and you're going to feel a connection. But, kindness, all those things should be a must have for everybody.
Yes.
I want somebody really mean and nasty
Yes.
who's,
Of course. And well, I mean, obviously there's a role play that you could do pretending, but you want to make sure that people have a baseline of kindness in their personality. And nobody, of course, is looking for somebody who isn't. But that's the question, is how do you notice the red flags, right?
yeah. So I would say a lot of times they show up as yellow flags. And when I work with a client, we do a debrief. I have it in the book. And I have them look for three things that they liked first. And we tend to have a bias and look for what's wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and again, it's a protective thing because of fear. We want to be safe. And so we try to find the wrong things. But if you can just look for what's good, even if it's just for a one time date. So, three things you liked, two things that are you're a little cautious about. Maybe it's a true red flag. You know, you saw somebody be really mean to the waiter, or he came late and didn't apologize, or he talked over you the entire time. And when you told him not to do it, he continued, or he got mad at you. Those are things to look for. And then three things that you thought you did really well on the date. And it has you focus inward, because we tend to focus always like, oh, I hope he picks me, and I hope he likes me. You get to be part of this equation. You are the chooser. So what do you think you did really well? Maybe you spoke up and talked about something a little more vulnerable this time. Maybe you didn't bond on your trauma, but you bonded on your passion this time. Maybe you did that other thing last time. And then two things that you would like to do better next time. So
Mm.
maybe it's like end the date earlier because you really didn't feel a connection, or something else, you know. So it's a learning process, but we're always looking for signs of what works first. If there's a yellow flag, then I suggest people get curious and ask questions. Don't keep it in, don't make up a story. Just ask, tell me more about that. Tell me more about you not being fully separated from your wife. What does that mean? You know, do you still live together? Are you what's happening with the divorce process? Whatever it is, whatever you need to feel safe, ask the questions.
Yes, I love what you're saying because first of all, you're talking about having a comprehensive process to evaluate yourself and the experience after a date, which I agree we tend to focus on what we didn't do well or does he like us? And those are kind of red herring questions because they won't lead us to productive answers. But the questions you're asking in your debrief process do have us focus on a productive question. You know, what did we do well? What could we have done better? And then also, what are we actually evaluating about him? You know, does he share our values? And you know, are there any yellow flags? And I love, and also, you know, like, don't like just objectively without making up stories or fantasizing, right? Because that's where we get ourselves in trouble. But I love the question that you're asking people to ask around yellow flags is just follow up, right? It's just follow up question. It's follow your intuition. It's say, tell me more about that. Oh, okay. So you think you might drink too much. Interesting. Tell me more about that. You know, with an open mind, because you're not, he'll tell you the truth on a first date because he's not invested yet. And that's when it's important to ask those kinds of questions because he's more likely to be real with you so that you can then, oh, that's a yellow flag. All right, tell me more about that. I mean, you don't say out loud that it's a yellow flag, right?
Right.
Then he'll reveal to you. And I think a lot of us are scared of asking those questions so that we'll find out something that bursts our bubble, like maybe there's something we don't like about him. And then, of course, it's having the trust that if he really does have a red flag, that we dodged a bullet and there's somebody better. You know, working through those scarcity beliefs, that, you know, we have the courage if we find a red flag to actually let somebody go. And that if it is a yellow flag, that if we have the courage to dig deeper, that will actually just create a deeper connection.
Yeah. And sometimes you're pleasantly surprised. You've made up a story that isn't true.
Right.
And it's like, oh, that thing that I thought was that is actually not that. And now I feel better.
Now I feel
And
better,
so,
and now I feel closer to you, and now I'm getting to know you better, and now I feel more
yeah,
connected, and it's like it was worth the risk, you know, for that
exactly.
deeper intimacy.
Yes, exactly. And so many people are so afraid of having these conversations. It is vulnerable, it is risky, but it's clarity. And clarity is so beautiful. It's like I just want to live my life in clarity. I don't want to have to
Yes,
guess. It's like, please tell me the truth. I don't want to have to spend 6 months with you and then find out who you are.
totally. And I mean, since that's kind of the title of the talk, then how do we know, right? How do we trust our gut? How do we stop second guessing ourselves? How do we know when it's a red flag and when to let someone go or not?
Yeah, so again, it's not a simple process. It's basically everything that we just shared today and more. But it's beginning this process of gaining clarity about who you are, how you operate best, what are your must-haves, what are your deal breakers, and really get clear like, oh, this isn't working for me. Oh, I'm getting curious about that. Oh, so it is working for me, and just keep exploring. And I think what we do is we get in and we decide, okay, this person is for me, isn't for me. Instead of
Quickly
just
without really
deciding,
testing, right?
right, you don't know enough often, unless it's so clear. You don't know enough to decide this is the one or this isn't the one. And sometimes it's our fear that blocks us from knowing somebody who could be an amazing match, but we get
Yeah.
scared because they come on
Mhm.
too strong,
Right.
or because they may take a little time to get to know us. And so we, oh, they're so cold. Maybe not. Maybe you're giving off a vibe and they don't really read you. And so, I encourage everyone to really do the work, to really look within and ask yourself, first of all, am I having fun? Am I enjoying this person? If you're feeling in your body that something is off, explore it. Explore it, ask questions, trust your body. We don't really go there very often. And I think one of the debrief questions that I ask also is, how does your body feel during a date? Are you feeling uptight? Are you feeling constricted? Or are you feeling at home? Do you feel
Mhm.
comfortable? Are you feeling curious to know more about this person? Are you feeling bored or inspired? These are all important questions to keep asking yourself as you go through the dating process, and really own your part as well. And I think, if you stay in discovery and just keep exploring and knowing that you don't have to decide today, that it's just, if something comes up, you'll start to trust that inner GPS and be able to make the best choices you can make.
Right. Exactly. I think what you're saying boils down to is really clarifying your inner GPS, getting super clear on not just what do you want and what are your preferences, but what do you need to feel emotionally safe, to feel passionate, to feel devoted and loyal, and like you're really the chooser, right? What are your deeper values and your deeper self-knowledge about what really makes you feel loved, cherished, and adored in relationship? And that's your GPS, and trust your deeper feelings based on that. Have that clarity, and then after a date, debrief based on that clarity. And if something's a pink flag or a yellow flag, ask those deeper questions to get answers as to whether or not he aligns with your inner GPS, because that's what'll keep you happy in the long term. And so, how to stop second guessing yourself is that you really have to go deeper. And of course, you have a process that you share in your new book about how to go deeper. And you've shared the beginnings with us today. And I know that you have a free gift that has some of these questions already laid out. So, would you like to tell us about that?
I do. I would love to. And by the way, the book also has boundary scripts. It has all kinds of great tools to help you to have these conversations, because I think very few people out there are giving you the actual words that you can say, and then you can modify it, make it your own. But if you have these at the ready, you're not going to put it off and put it off and put it off. So my free gift is the first two chapters, two free chapters of the book. And you just have to go to my website, lastfirstdate.com/book bonus, and grab your free gift.
Yay. Yeah, so that's lastfirstdate.com/book bonus. I will put that in the show notes. So that's below the YouTube video and then in the show notes of the podcast. And then I'll also put the title of your full book in the notes if people want to check that out. I did just check, and you can get it on Amazon. I'm not sure about the other platforms,
Mhm.
but it's called Choice Points in Dating: Empowering Women to Make Better Decisions in Love. And I haven't read it yet, but I imagine you outline this process that you've shared with us today. And so people, of course, can look at that and reach out to you. Yes.
Here we are.
Yes, you
I
have
think
it both.
it's healthier decisions in love. I might have changed the subtitle from the time. It's empowering women to make healthier
Healthier
decisions in
decisions in
love.
love. Right. Got it. Yes. That's the one you sent me, right? The better. But yes, healthier decisions in love. Yes, because I do agree that it's important to have healthy love.
Yes.
And I completely think that I agree. It's just about going deeper inside ourselves and finding that true compatibility, which I think that a process such as the one you described here sounds really easy to follow and also really deeply fulfilling and meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that hard. It's just consistent effort. Put the work in, have the grit to stay in and not leave when your heart is broken and quit, because you may be missing somebody who's just around the corner. And if you start to trust yourself, your friends have good intention, but they often misguide you. Your parents, oh my God. I mean, my mother was just guiding my sister who's 70 and dating somebody after her divorce and dating pretty seriously. My mother's like, just get married. You don't need to ask him all those questions. Just get married. My husband died. Her second husband died of Alzheimer's, and she's like trying to guide her to seize the moment. He may have Alzheimer's too. He's just like, what are you saying? So I'm guiding my sister with ask him the right questions. Make sure you
Yes.
spend this time with him, and make sure you understand his finances, and
Make
talk
sure you
about
understand.
intimacy and all these things. And my mother's like, just get married.
Yes, I know.
So make sure you follow the right guide. And the right guide is really you if you do this training.
Yes, no, exactly. Because people will give you advice based on what worked for them.
Yeah.
And what worked for them might not be what works for you. And I love that what you're saying is that your process helps people to connect to what's most deeply meaningful for them as an individual. And once you know that, that's when you can trust the decisions that are based on that inner clarity rather than second guessing what you think you should know. And if you're second guessing yourself, then it's about really going deeper, and that you have a process to help people go deeper. Because I agree, it's the thing that really gets us tripped up and feeling really bad about ourselves and about life is when we're unclear, when we're like, I don't know the best decision to make, and we're in that murky, confused state. That's always the worst. We just want to be clear about, is this person right for us? Is this person not right for us? And then once we trust our own decision and act on it accordingly, even though, yes, rejecting people is painful. And I'm glad that you give scripts for that. But when you then do find yourself single again, and then eventually partnered with the right person, you'll realize that asking these deeper questions and getting the compatibility is the best, because eventually you will wind up happy.
Yes. So important. I mean, look, I've made all the mistakes so people don't have to.
Yes. And I think that's a great note to end on, because that's why we're here, right? We're just here to empower people to shorten the learning curve so that you have your last first date and you can have happy, healthy love.
Amen.
So, amen.